Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to our 49th session of Bhagavad Gita Overview Seminar for Bhakti Shastri. Thank you very much for attending, participating. We just appreciate your presence so much. It's just really wonderful. So, devotees, we are in the 12th chapter. The 12th chapter, which is titled Devotional Service, and is, well, you could say summing up, you could say, but maybe not exactly that. It's detailing certain very important aspects about devotional service, about pure devotional service, very important facts. Last night, we again, in the 12th chapter, again, we went through the subject of personalism being better than impersonalism, rendering service to the Lord being better than just doing some silent meditation. These types of ideas, which of course we mentioned last night, have already been discussed on a few occasions here and there. So we went through that again. Yes, and Krishna emphatically, Krishna made the point that the personal aspect of the Absolute is the highest, and the people engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Person, they are the highest of all people trying to progress spiritually. And particularly for the devotees, the personalists, Krishna is very merciful. Krishna is very kind. And as we read just right towards the end, that we must just do our best to serve and please the Lord and the spiritual master. And then our going back to Godhead, that'll be taken care of by Krishna. We won't have to worry about how am I going to get myself back to Godhead. Krishna will take care of that. All right, so now we're moving on to the second section from verse 8 to verse 12. That is what we're going to focus on tonight. And the subject there is different levels of Krishna consciousness, or of Krishna consciousness, or ultimately just different levels of consciousness. Just give me a second or two. All right. So here we go. Hare Krishna. So yes, the second section from verse 8 to verse 12, we have titled Progressive Stages of Devotion. Some of them are sort of a little outside of the field of devotion really, but the idea is that those that are a little removed from real devotional service, that if one cultivates them nicely, they may help one come to devotional service. Yes, so the idea is then Oh, I haven't chanted my prayers, have I? The idea is, I must chant my prayers. Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastya Chadesha Tarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now our lighting just got completely changed. So I have to change the lighting here a bit. Maybe a little bit. Like that. Like that. A little bit like that. That should do. Or even just a little bit like that. Probably. Okay. All right. Yes. So now, having made it extremely clear that devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the best process, so Lord Krishna is going to give some instructions on how to practice it. And he's going to start, oftentimes we start from the beginning and go up. The beginning stages and then gradually progressing. But here Lord Krishna is going to begin from the top, from the highest position of pure devotional service, and come down. All right, so it's verses 8 to 12, and there are no subsections, it's just the 5 verses. So let's just read through the translations, and then we'll go through the purports and elaborate a bit. All right, verse 8. And remember, this is high level, very high level. Pure devotional service, completely. Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always, without a doubt. Just fix your mind completely. 9. My dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. 10. If you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me, because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. So, okay, then 11. If, however, you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, then try to act, giving up all results of your work, and try to be self-situated. And finally, verse 12. Well, you can see there, it's kind of outside of Krishna consciousness. You're unable to work in consciousness of Krishna. Yeah. Then just give up the results of your work in one way or another. Don't be too attached. 12. If you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action. For by such renunciation, one can attain peace of mind. All right, so these are the 5 verses we're going to go through this evening. And of course, it's very important because particularly the first 2 verses, 8 and 9, they're very specifically about devotional service and the practicality of devotional service for different types of devotees who have different qualifications, who are on different levels. All right, so let's go through. First of all is verse 8, which is about the most elevated level of being completely fixed in pure Krishna consciousness, without deviation. So the verse, just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always, without a doubt. Right, so obviously this is very advanced devotee, just living in Krishna always, and all the intelligence just engaged in Krishna or in activities connected with Krishna, mind never thinking of anything other than Krishna. That's advanced, isn't it? That is advanced. Okay, let's just say a few words here. So we can see the way Prabhupada's explaining in the purport, this devotee is basically situated in his or her eternal relationship with the Lord, direct relationship. So as Prabhupada says, one who's engaged in Lord Krishna's devotional service lives in a direct relationship with the Supreme Lord. Yes. Let's just read the purport. So there's no doubt that his position is transcendental from the very beginning. A devotee doesn't live on the material plane, he lives in Krishna. The holy name of the Lord and the Lord are non-different. Therefore, when a devotee chants Hare Krishna, Krishna and his internal potency are dancing on the tongue of the devotee. When the devotee offers Krishna food, Krishna directly accepts these eatables, directly. And the devotee becomes Krishnized by eating the remnants. One who does not engage in such service cannot understand how this is so. Yes, for the non-devotees, it's all, at least let us say, a mystery. Although this is a process recommended in Bhagavad Gita and in other Vedic literatures. Yes, so direct connection with the Lord, we also have it in our practice. We're also offering the food, and Krishna is accepting. We're also chanting the holy names, and Krishna is dancing. But we are not so conscious, so aware that Krishna is dancing on our tongue. We do not exactly perceive Krishna eating the food that we offer, although we have heard, particularly from Srila Prabhupada and the devotees, but particularly Prabhupada, we've heard, Krishna accepts the food we offer if we offer it nicely, following the proper system, the authorized, bona fide system, then Krishna accepts that. And I'm sure we've all had so many experiences of eating nicely offered Krishna prasad and feeling some wonderful type of experience, a blissful, purifying experience just directly from the prasadam itself, because it's not different from Krishna. But the devotees who are really on this level, fixed minds on Krishna, living in him always, not some of the time, not really up and then down, and then up and then down, and then maybe further down, and then up. You know, the sort of not completely stable, not completely steady experience that many of us have, at least from time to time, if not regularly, in Krishna consciousness. But there are devotees who are completely fixed like that, on that elevated level of being fully absorbed in Krishna. Like Prahlad Maharaj, when Hiranyakashipu asked him, right at the end, that, all right, if your God is everywhere, is he in that pillar? And Prahlad looked at the pillar, saw the Lord there, and therefore in just a straightforward way said, yes, he's there. It wasn't like he looked at the pillar and he saw the Lord and it was like, wow, the Lord is there. That's amazing. He was seeing the Lord everywhere, always. So therefore, for him it was quite straightforward. Yes, the Lord's there. And even Prabhupada explains elsewhere, of course, that Prahlad, as a young boy, 5 years old, just a small child, was assuming, innocently assuming, that everyone was seeing the way he was seeing. And therefore everyone was seeing the Lord everywhere. I mean, after all, we all, isn't it? We assume that everybody else is basically seeing the situation that we're all in the same way we're seeing it, isn't it? I think so. In other words, you see that I have like a brown pullover, isn't it? It doesn't look green. Something like that. Yeah, so Prahlad was thinking like that, and he was wondering, why does my father keep asking me, where's the Lord? Can't he see? He's everywhere. Maybe my father needs glasses. And there's the story, famous story, very beautiful story, of Raghunandan Thakur and his father Mukunda from Srikanda, not too far, well, a little way, and a couple of hours maybe, or 1 or 2 hours, from Mayapur, or from Navadweep actually, probably 3 hours from Mayapur. And Raghunandan's the son, and his young boy, he's probably not even 10 years old, maybe 7 or 8 years old or something like that. And his father Mukunda wants to teach him how to offer food to the deity of Gopinath. So he taught him the mantras, explained the procedure that, you know, what you do, you bring in the plates and you put them down and you chant the mantras and you do this and that and so on. He taught him all these things, and then said, okay, I'm going out now, you do the offering. He came back later and asked his son Raghunandan, so how was it doing the offering? And Raghunandan said, it was very difficult, extremely difficult. And Mukunda asked, well, what was so difficult? Did you forget the mantras? No, I didn't forget the mantras. Did you forget the procedure, how to do things different, the order of things you must do? No, that was no problem. Then what was so difficult? It was so difficult getting Krishna to eat the food. It was so difficult. And Mukunda thought, wow, what is this now? But then he thought, okay, let's not worry about it too much. And he asked, okay, can I have some prasadam, please? And Raghunandan, the son, said, prasadam? What prasadam? There's no prasadam. Krishna ate everything. And Mukunda couldn't figure that out. But anyway, he decided the next day to let Raghunandan do the offering again, and he would go out again, but he would come around and watch secretly from the side and just see what was really going on, which made everything apparently so difficult. So he did that. He told Raghunandan, okay, you do the offering again. Came around, now he's watching, listening secretly. And he saw Raghunandan put the plate in front of the deity, bow down, ring the bell, chant the mantras, and all these things. That's the normal procedure. And then after you've done all the mantras and everything, then you're meant to go out so the deity can eat in peace. But Raghunandan did not go out. He remained there kneeling and looking up at the deity of Gopinath. And Mukunda was thinking, now what is he doing? Then so he's looking and listening, and he heard Raghunandan say, please, Krishna, please eat the food. Please eat the food, Krishna. Krishna, please eat the food. Please. And Mukunda thought, oh my gosh, this is not how you do it. You just let the deity eat in his own transcendental way. You know, he doesn't have to comply with your sort of, like sit down and everything. He can do it in his own way. He eats through his eyes. But then he saw Gopinath, the deity, stepped off the altar and started eating the food. And Mukunda realized, my son Raghunandan is very elevated devotee. Krishna does what he says. If he asks Krishna to do something, Krishna does it. So then he came back in, Mukunda came in, and Krishna got back up on the altar quickly. And Mukunda understood, then he asked Raghunandan again. Raghunandan didn't know that Mukunda had seen that incident. So Mukunda, he just asked Raghunandan again, okay, so how was it? How was it this time? Offering the food, how was it? And Raghunandan said, it was really difficult again. Actually, it wasn't as bad as last night. It wasn't that bad, but still it was very difficult. And Mukunda said, what do you mean it was difficult? And Raghunandan said, just in a very innocent way, to get Krishna to eat. And where's the Mahaprasad? There's no Mahaprasad. Krishna ate everything. The story, the end of it, appears in Chaitanya Charitamrita. The end of it means Mukunda and Raghunandan went with all the devotees to Jagannath Puri to visit Lord Chaitanya around the time of the Ratha Yatra. And so the two of them, father and son, they had personal darshan with Lord Chaitanya. So there they are, and the boy, like we said, is maybe 7 or 8 years old, and Mukunda the father, no, he must be at least 30, he may be 35 or something like that. And there they are with Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya looks at them, kind of studies them. Okay. And then Lord Chaitanya said to them, tell me, which one of you is the father and which one is the son? You know, it sounds like something just a little funny, of course. But Mukunda understood what the Lord was getting at, because he knew the Lord is omniscient. He knows everything that happens everywhere. So Mukunda understood, he already understood that Raghunandan is more advanced than me. He may be a child 7 or 8 years old, but Krishna doesn't get down off the altar to eat when I offer him food. So my son is more advanced than me. So Lord Chaitanya asked the question, who's the father, who's the son? And Mukunda answered, and he said, you know, my Lord, I think Raghunandan is my father, and I am his son. And Lord Chaitanya said, yes, you have understood. Lord Chaitanya said, he who arouses your Krishna consciousness is your father spiritually, birth after birth. Yeah. And therefore Prabhupada, in regards to the Guru Vandana song that we sing at Guru Puja, there is the verse, Chakudan Dilajay Janme Janme Prabhu Se. Chaku, the eyes, Dilajay, that person who gave me the eyes to see spiritually. Janme Janme, birth after birth, Prabhu Se is my master. But there are a few occasions, you can look up if you do a search on the computer, where Prabhupada says, Chakudan Dilajay, Janme Janme Pita Se. That person who opens up my eyes with knowledge is my father, spiritually, birth after birth. All right, so anyway, that's something about the most elevated devotee. Let's go on to verse 9. My dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of bhakti yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. Or in effect, Krishna is saying, in this way, you will develop a desire to attain me. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Shri Giri Govardhan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. All right. So of course, here Lord Krishna, just right in the beginning of the verse, he is referring to the devotee, that level of Krishna consciousness of verse 8 of the verse we just read before, where you're just fixed on Krishna without deviation. But if you can't do that, then follow the regulative principles of devotional service. Means Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, which is basically what we are following. This is basically what Srila Prabhupada gave us. He gave us his instructions. He gave us this Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Devotion, the other books, in which we, who were otherwise born in ignorance, we can learn what to do and what not to do, and then practice doing what we should do, and be careful not to do what we shouldn't do. And it takes time to learn all these things, so you don't mess up sometimes, so you remain fixed regularly in devotional service. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes a comment here in his purport on this verse. He says that Krishna says, if you aren't able to directly remember me, then bring your mind back and fix it again and again on my form. Practicing like that is called abhyasa yoga. The mind is like a river. You see, Krishna has used the word abhyasa yoga, abhyasa yogena in the verse, in the Sanskrit. So the mind is like a river which is prone to flow into dirty areas. You know, as they say, water flows to the lowest point. It seeks the lowest point. Yeah. So the mind is like that. It's prone to flow down into dirty areas, but control it through dams. And in this way, bring it to the ocean, which is my form and rasa. Krishna's saying. Yeah. So the thing is, if we regularly do the right things, and we always avoid doing the wrong things, then we will become purified. And gradually our Krishna consciousness will start awakening from within. And in this way, a real attraction for Krishna will arise. And then we'll come to the level described in verse 8. But now, but that love of God is there, it's dormant within the heart. You remember in Nectar of Devotion how we discussed how Srila Prabhupada told us about Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti at the beginning there. That in the beginning, someone has to get up early in the morning, even if they don't want to. They're meant to do that because the spiritual master said so, because the scriptures say so. Therefore, okay, I must get up, even though you all know what the mind is like sometimes early in the morning. But after a while, you start getting used to it. And it's not a big struggle. And then it becomes nice to get up, take a bath, and go and engage in devotional activity. It's so nice. And Srila Prabhupada gives the example of a child learning to walk. That to walk, the capacity, the potential to walk is there in the heart of all humans, basically, in the heart of every child. But of course, in the beginning, the child doesn't know how to walk. But as time goes on, just a little time, a year or year and a half, whatever it is, then gradually the child starts to walk, starts trying to walk, and then walking and falling sometimes, and then walking. Because it is the natural propensity is built in to the human condition. Whereas other types of abilities, like flying, that's not built into us. But walking is built into us. So Krishna consciousness is built into us. Nitya Siddha, Krishna Prema, Sadhya Kabu Noi, Shravanadi Shuddhachite Karaya Udoy. Lord Chaitanya spoke that verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that the eternal perfection of love for Krishna is permanently, eternally in the heart of every living entity. It doesn't need to be acquired from an external source. And if we engage in the process of devotional service beginning with hearing, then gradually it will rise in the heart. So this is what's being talked about here in verse 9 and in the purport. Let's just read from the 4th paragraph, the last paragraph. To practice the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga, one should, under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, follow certain principles. One should rise early in the morning, take bath, enter the temple and offer prayers and chant Hare Krishna, then collect flowers to offer to the deity, cook foodstuffs to offer to the deity, take prasadam, and so on. There are various rules and regulations which one should follow. And one should constantly hear Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam from pure devotees. This practice can help anyone rise to the level of love of God, and then he's sure of his progress into the spiritual kingdom of God. This practice of Bhakti Yoga, under the rules and regulations, with the direction of the spiritual master, will surely bring one to the stage of love of God, which is the stage described in the first verse that we read tonight, verse 8. All right. So now, verse 10. If you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me. Because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. So yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? This is now talking about someone who cannot follow the regulative principles, or at least all of the principles, regulative principles. They cannot probably manage 16 rounds. Maybe they can do a few. Maybe they can't even do any, actually. But somehow they have some attachment for Krishna, the association of devotees. Some attraction is there. So what to do? They should do, at least in the technical language, Nishkam Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga, in which they're working and offering the results to Krishna, but Nishkam, because they're working for Krishna. They're not working for themselves and giving something to Krishna. As Krishna says, by working for me, they're actually working for Krishna. So, yes, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes a comment, as the tongue contaminated by jaundice, type of hepatitis, does not like sugar candy, so the mind, contaminated by ignorance, does not accept your form, even though it is sweet. Therefore, it is not possible for me to combat this very strong, uncontrollable mind. Why is this person struggling to control their mind and not really so able to control it so nicely? Because his or her mind is contaminated by ignorance and therefore doesn't accept the form of Krishna, which is very sweet. Once you get a taste for Krishna, everything becomes easy. The more you get a taste. So, Srila Prabhupada gives a summary here. Let's see now. Anyway, Prabhupada, in the purport, you'll see a couple of sentences into the purport. One should be sympathetic to the propagation of Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So one should be sympathetic to those who are fully engaged, or shall we say, more engaged than you are, and particularly to those who are really fully engaged and practicing and trying to give the world Krishna consciousness. One should be sympathetic to those devotees and help them. So even if you can't directly do all the things which it really is best to do, follow the principles, chant the rounds, etc., but you can help those who are doing it. So Prabhupada explains like that. You can donate some money. Yes, you can run a business. You can run a business. Prabhupada says that the materialists, they're running businesses. So the only difference is that in materialism one works for sense gratification. The same work, however, can be performed for the sake of Krishna. Yes. Do that for Krishna, for helping the Krishna consciousness movement. And then that is spiritual activity. If you've got enough money, build a temple for Krishna consciousness. Yeah. Or help with the printing of literatures. Prabhupada mentions all of these things here. These are the ways, these are some of the ways that a person who can't follow all the principles and do everything in the really sort of first-class way, but they can engage and do good things for Krishna consciousness, get benefit, get purification, get mercy, and make progress. Yeah. So like this, Prabhupada says, this voluntary service to the cause of Krishna consciousness will help one to rise to a higher state of love of God, whereupon one becomes perfect, step by step. You know, it does not mean that you just carry on doing karma yoga without following regulative principles, without chanting, without like a real sadhana. You just carry on working and, you know, donating and helping out. And then just by doing that, continuing to do that, one will come to love of God. No. If you do like that, help the movement, help the devotees, etc., then gradually you'll come to the point where you can follow the principles and become like a stable, focused practitioner of Krishna consciousness. And verse 11, if, however, you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, then try to act, giving up all results of your work, and try to be self-situated. And Prabhupada says right at the beginning of the purport that it may be that one is unable even to sympathize with the activities of Krishna consciousness because of different social, family considerations, religious, some of these, particularly family considerations in some cases. Yeah, you can't even just get involved in a sort of peripheral way, just helping out, what to speak of becoming fully engaged in devotional service. So because of these considerations or because of some other impediments. But if one attaches himself directly, if one attaches himself directly to the activities of Krishna consciousness, there may be objections from family members or so many other difficulties. For one who is such a problem, it's advised that he sacrifice the accumulated result of his activities to some good cause. Some good cause. Don't just be attached to just keeping everything for yourself. Become detached. Give to something, some good cause. Means not a Krishna conscious cause, of course, because this is what has been said, that one, due to these personal circumstances, a person may not be able to directly involve themselves in Krishna consciousness at all. Not at all. So at least give some charity to help the suffering people, or to educate the uneducated, all that sort of thing. Actually, Prabhupada gives some examples here that some good cause. So it's just down a few sentences down. Such procedures are described in the Vedic rules. There are many descriptions of sacrifices and special functions for the full moon day, and there's special work in which the result of one's previous action may be applied. Then just a little further down, that someone may give some charity to some hospital, some social institution. So this is also recommended here, because by giving up the fruits of your activities, you become purified gradually. This is the basic point here. Yes. So Prabhupada says at the end of the purport, towards the end, in that respect, social service, community service, national service, sacrifice for one's country, etc., may be accepted, so that someday one may come to the stage of pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 1846, we find it is stated, Yatha pravriti bhutanam, if one decides to sacrifice for the supreme cause, even if he doesn't know that the supreme cause is Krishna, he'll come gradually to understand that Krishna is the supreme cause by the sacrificial method. So in other words, just get into the habit of renouncing, of not being attached. And then the very fundamental material attachments will be cleansed away. The attachments of I, me, mine, like that. So renounce something rather than being completely attached. But then if you can't do that, oh my gosh, if you can't do that, what's left? Well, 12. If you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action, for by such renunciation one can attain peace of mind. So renunciation of the fruits of action, this is kind of connecting up with this verse 11 we just discussed right now. But first of all, Krishna is saying, if you can't do this, cultivate knowledge. And we can note in this regard, and it's a really important point, that Srila Prabhupada, for the people who are like this, because here we're talking about pretty much materialistic people who can't even give some charity. They can't give up anything. They're just holding on to everything. So for those people, for just the people in general, Prabhupada's plan was distribution of his books. Yes, distribution of his books. This is conforming with this instruction of Krishna here. If you're just so attached you can't give up anything, then cultivate knowledge. Because then eventually, if it's the right knowledge, you may get the idea, oh, I should change my ways. So, yeah, Prabhupada talks about this. And the whole idea of better than knowledge is meditation, better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action. Prabhupada discusses this. Let's see, yeah. It's starting with the second sentence in the purport. For those who are actually not able to follow the principles of Krishna consciousness, it's better to cultivate knowledge, because by knowledge one can be able to understand his real position, if it's the right knowledge. Therefore, the emphasis on distributing Prabhupada's books. Gradually, knowledge will develop to the point of meditation. Gradually, as you understand Krishna consciousness, then you'll start chanting Hare Krishna. By meditation, by chanting Hare Krishna, one can be able to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by a gradual process. Yeah. Okay. In the cultivation of knowledge, there are processes which make one understand that one himself is the Supreme, and that sort of meditation is preferred if one is unable to engage in devotional service. Yeah. Anyway, so this is the idea. Come to the stage of knowledge which gives the inspiration for meditation, chanting the holy names. Which then, you develop attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then gradually you become a devotee. So this is an indirect process. I mean, the very last bit, particularly about, possibly meditating on something impersonal. It's really indirect. And Prabhupada addresses this, that actually we're not really interested in this indirect process via impersonalism. Prabhupada says in the second paragraph, so to reach the Supreme Lord there are two processes. One is very gradual, that's what was just mentioned. And the other is direct. Devotional service is direct. The other method involves renouncing the fruits of one's activities. So, Prabhupada says, one may take either the step-by-step process or the direct process. The direct process is not possible for everyone. Therefore, the indirect process is also good. It is, however, to be understood that the indirect process is not recommended for Arjuna or for any of it. I mean, generally, at least for those of us devotees who are regularly practicing Krishna consciousness, chanting our rounds, following the principles and like that. Yeah. So it's the indirect process is not recommended for Arjuna because he's already at the stage of doing devotional service. So it's for others who are not at this stage. For them, the gradual process of renunciation, which is what was mentioned here really, other than reading Prabhupada's books. For them, the gradual process of renunciation, knowledge, meditation, realization of the Supersoul and Brahman should be followed. But as far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned, it is the direct method that is stressed. Everyone's advised to take to the direct method and surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah, so it might be a little confusing. I mean, it's quite easy to understand how it could be confusing that Prabhupada is recommending a process which involves impersonalism. But or Krishna is recommending that, and Prabhupada is presenting it. It's only for people, you know, who are just pretty much out of it, frankly. Those who, even if they get a book, they don't understand, they won't accept, and they just stay absorbed in material life. For those who get a book, even if they're ordinary people, but they get a book, they get the message, then they associate with devotees and start progressing in Krishna consciousness. These things, these other things in this verse don't apply. Yeah. So, and even for that matter, our experience is that so many people who get into somehow or other some impersonal process, it's not easy for them to become Krishna conscious. Some do. Some do. And for them, it may actually have helped them to be engaged in that, you know, impersonal type of process. Yeah. Of course, obviously for others, or for most of them, it ends up just being a deviation. Therefore, we try to get people to understand what is Krishna consciousness, what is the value of devotional service, and get them involved. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.